So for your notes, guys, multiplying and dividing fractions, these are the first fractions I want to look at. So you should write this problem down like Sam's doing right now, and James is doing. And we're going to go after this. And this should be review, but if you're rusty, guys, it happens, okay? So, the first thing I look to do when I'm multiplying fractions, well, let's start here. What you can do is top times top, bottom times bottom, right? Just multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. But you want to look for cross-simplifying. And what that means is you look at numerator, denominator across from each other and look for an opportunity to simplify. So like 5 and 3, their only common factor is 1. But 2 and 10 have a common factor of 2. Yep. So I can actually divide both my 2 and my 10 by 2 to get a 1 and a 5. So I'm going to show you why we can do that in a second. But once we do that, I can just do 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. And 5 times 5 is 25. So just multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. And let me show you. Let's say you didn't cross-simplify. You'd have a negative 6/50. Right? Both of those, if they get divided by 2, equals negative 3/25. So you could still get the same answer. It just, you work with smaller numbers when you cross-simplify. So let me show you why you can cross-simplify, okay? 2/5, 3/10. Did everybody get this down? That wanted down?
Yep.
Okay. So 2/5 times 3/10. Let's say we just multiply it across the top. We get 6/50. So watch what happens when I swap these two things. Let's say I had 3/5 and 2/10. Notice I still get 6/50. Do you notice I got the same answer even if I swapped numerators? Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Well, if I swap numerators, look at this fraction. That fraction could be simplified by dividing both by 2. Well, we don't need to swap it. That's why when we just look at our original fraction, we can cross-simplify. Because we could just make that a fraction like this and get the same answer. So that is why we can cross-simplify. It has to do with the commutative property of multiplication. I don't advocate for switching it like that. I'm just showing you so you understand why we can cross-simplify. So let's look at one to try on your own that you could use cross-simplifying. Let's do negative 3/5 times negative 10. Let's do negative 10/12. So I want you to try this one out and look for an opportunity to cross-simplify, okay? Notice I said try it out. I did not say try it and you better only try it if you're going to get it right. No, we're just trying it. So who'd like to share what they tried to do cross-simplifying? Maria, what's one thing you tried?
You cross-simplify 3 and 12.
Yeah, you divide those both by what?
3.
Okay. Make sure you don't lose that negative on your 3, okay?
So you change it to 1 and 4.
A negative 1 and a 4, right? Just I'm making sure. Okay, did anybody find anything else we could cross-simplify?
Did she say the 5 and the 10?
The 12 and the 3. So, James, you're saying the 5 and 10? Mm-hmm. You can divide those both by 5. Get a 1 and a negative 2.
Yep.
So if I'm looking at my numerator, what's negative 1 times negative 2? 2. If I look at my denominator, 1 times 4 is 4. And I can simplify that fraction of 2/4 to 1/2.
Positive, right?
Yep, negative times negative is positive. So one thing I want to show you is, let's say you did not simplify. You would have gotten 30 over 60, which still simplifies to
15 over 30.
which simplifies to 1 over 2 still. Cross-simplifying from the get-go, you're going to have smaller numbers to divide, and then you're going to have smaller fractions at the end, which it's going to be easier. You don't have to, but it's going to make life easier. You're going to have to, if you don't cross-simplify, you're going to have to simplify later anyway. Right? So my advice is cross-simplify, work with smaller numbers. Let's look at a little division, or as I like to call it, division. Okay? So let's say we had something like negative 1/4 divided by 3/8. Okay? Division is actually multiplication. You might know this intuitively. Let's say you had $10. What's half of $10? Yeah, $5. Another way to get half of $10 is to take 10 and multiply by half. Right? Because half of 10 is. So I want you to take note right here. Divided by 2 and times 1/2 are the same thing. So if you do the reciprocal and use the other operation, it's the same thing. So instead of looking at this as division, guys, you're going to look at it as negative 1/4 times the reciprocal of 8/3. Everybody see that that's the same thing as you intuitively do with that 2 and the halves? Okay, so you might hear people say keep, change, flip. Yeah, that's the action.
Keep, change, flip. KFC.
See? So keep, change, flip. But just know that multiplying by the reciprocal or the flipped is the same thing. These two are the same. So now that I have this multiplied by the reciprocal down here, I'm going to cross simplify. I can divide both 4 and 8 by 4 and get a 1 and a 2 for a negative 2/3. So I heard someone out there say something like a negative 8/12. We could divide those both by 4 and get negative 2/3. Same answer. I just prefer to cross simplify. Okay?
Negative 2.
Let's give it one more.
Yay.
Negative 3/8 divided by 6/15. Negative 3/8 divided by 6/15. All right, guys, so as I go after this one, here's my negative 3/8. Instead of dividing, I'm going to multiply, and the reciprocal is 15/6. Now I'm going to look for ways to cross simplify. I'm looking at that 3 and 6. I can divide those both by 3. And that gives me negative 15/16. Cool, cool? All right. Nice review, guys.